morning after the heavy rain. The sky was still grey, and the air smelled of wet sand. People in our village were just waking up when the news spread like wildfire. Madame Remy had bought a brand new car. Not just any car. A black Jeep, shining like glass, with tinted windows and silver rims. It was the first of its kind in our community. Nobody saw it coming. Yesterday, she was struggling to sell pap and akara by the roadside. Her store had no umbrella, her slippers were always wet, and her face looked tired. But now, in less than 24 hours, everything changed. Some people said she won the lottery. Others whispered that an old uncle from London had sent her money. But the thing that got everyone talking was how she carried herself. She didn't smile. She didn't explain. She just moved out of her small house into a bigger one at the end of our street. It was freshly painted, with golden window frames and a gate taller than a palm tree. It felt strange. I watched all of this from my mother's tailoring shop across the road. I had known Remy all my life. She was a single mother with 2 children, Tay and Kemi. Her son was about 12, her daughter maybe 9. They were always in faded clothes, always quiet. But after the new house and car, those children started dressing like they were going to a wedding every day. Nobody really said anything directly. In our village, people watch but rarely talk. But they were watching. Me too. One day, I saw something that shook me. Madame Remy was leaving her new house in the Jeep, and Kemi, her daughter, came running after her, barefoot, crying. "Mommy, wait," she shouted. But Remy didn't stop. The gate closed, and the driver sped off. Kemi sat on the floor outside the gate and wept. Later that evening, I heard her shouting inside the compound. Not the mother, the child. Screaming, like she was in pain. I wanted to go and knock, but I didn't. Nobody did. That night, my mother said, "Some wealth comes with blood." I didn't understand it then. But I remembered it. Because from that day forward, Remy's life changed, and so did her children's. But not in the way anyone expected. After Madame Remy moved into the big house, everything became quiet, but not the good kind of quiet. Her children stopped going to school. We used to see them walk down the dusty road with their bags on their backs, always holding hands. Now, the compound gate rarely opened. Nobody saw the kids for days. One afternoon, I went to deliver fabric to one of my mother's customers who lived near Madame Remy's place. As I passed her gate, I heard something. A loud thud, like someone hitting a wall. Then a soft whimper. It sounded like a child. I paused, unsure if I should go closer. Then I saw the security guard glaring at me from behind the gate, and I quickly walked away. People began to talk more openly now. Some said they saw men in dark clothes going into the house late at night. One woman said she heard chanting from the compound around midnight. Another claimed she saw Remy burying something behind her house with her bare hands. Whether the stories were true or not, the fear was real. Children were told not to walk past that house after dark. Even adults crossed the road when they got close. But what stayed in my mind most was Kemi. I saw her once from a distance. She was on the upstairs balcony, just standing still. She looked thinner than before. Her clothes were neat, but her eyes, those eyes were empty. Like she had seen something she couldn't explain. Tay, the older boy, was seen once at the local chemist, buying sleeping pills. He didn't greet anyone. He just kept looking over his shoulder, like he was being watched. Then there was the matter of Remy herself. She no longer spoke to anyone. She walked through the village market like a stranger. No greetings, no smiles. She didn't even look people in the eye. And every Sunday, she would travel out of town. Alone. Nobody knew where she went or what she did. It was around this time that bad things started happening. One of her neighbors woke up with a swollen leg. Another woman said her child started having strange dreams after playing near Madame Remy's compound. The village elders called for a meeting, but nobody wanted to accuse her openly. Something was wrong. We all felt it. But nobody had proof. And the children, Tay and Kemi, they were the ones who seemed to be paying the price. It was raining that evening. The kind of heavy, stubborn rain that soaks the earth and makes people hide indoors. But something strange happened. Tay, Madame Remy's son, was outside. He stood in the middle of the road, drenched, shivering, his clothes stuck to his skin. He looked confused. Lost. I was at Mama Keji's shop nearby when someone shouted, "Look! It's Madame Remy's boy." People came out, gathering under roofs and umbrellas, watching. Nobody knew whether to go to him or not. Then he collapsed. 3 men rushed to carry him inside. I followed, curious and scared. They laid him on the floor of the shop, wrapped him in a dry wrapper, and someone gave him hot pap. He looked up at all of us, his lips trembling. And then he started to talk. He said they weren't allowed to leave the house without permission. That their mother had become someone else. "It's not her anymore," he whispered. "She's always whispering to someone we can't see. At night, she burns things in a pot and talks to the fire." We were all silent. Some people gasped. He said the money started after a visitor came, an old man with one blind eye. That was the night things changed. "She buried something in the floor of our sitting room," he said. "She told us to never step on it." He said his sister, Kemi, hadn't spoken in weeks. She just stared at the walls. "She sees things," he whispered. "She says they come for her when the candles go off." The worst part. He said Madame Remy gave them things to drink. Bitter drinks, at midnight. And if they refused, she would lock them in the bathroom, where the walls were covered in charcoal drawings of eyes and snakes. People were crying now. A woman shouted, "We must go and bring that girl out." But when a group of men went to the house with Tay, they found the gate locked. No sign of Madame Remy. No Kemi. Just the security man, sitting like a statue, smiling in a way that made everyone uncomfortable. That night, nobody slept well in the village. We didn't know what kind of power had entered our land. But we knew it came with a price. And from the look on Tay's face, it wasn't over yet. 3 days after Tay spoke, Kemi was still missing. Madame Remy had not returned. Her house remained locked from the inside, but strange things kept happening. Neighbors complained of hearing children crying at night, soft at first, then louder, like they were being dragged. Others said they saw red lights flashing inside the house, even when there was no light in the entire village. Some said we should leave it alone. That we were touching things that were not meant to be touched. But most of us had children, and we were afraid. So the elders called Pastor Joe. He was a young man, not from our village, but people said he had seen things. He arrived in the evening, dressed in plain clothes, holding only a small Bible and a bottle of oil. He didn't say much. Just stood at the front of Madame Remy's house, stared at it for a while, and said, "This is not just greed. This is a transaction." That night, around midnight, a loud bang woke the whole street. When we rushed out, we saw him, an old man with a bent back, walking slowly toward the gate of Madame Remy's house. His feet were bare, but he didn't seem to mind the stones. He held a walking stick that didn't touch the ground. And as he passed by each compound, dogs barked madly and then stopped, like something silenced them. He got to the gate and stood still. Suddenly, the gate opened on its own. We all screamed. Pastor Joe stepped forward and shouted, "Who sent you?" But the old man didn't answer. He just smiled, a dry, empty smile, and walked through the gate. Then it slammed shut behind him. Everything went quiet. We waited for something. a cry, a sound. But nothing came. Then, maybe 10 minutes later, we saw it. Smoke started rising from the roof of Madame Remy's house. But it wasn't fire, it was thick, black, and moving like it had a mind of its own. It twisted and turned into shapes, faces, eyes. And then the gate burst open again. The old man walked out. But this time, he wasn't alone. Behind him was Kemi. Barefoot, pale, and staring like she was sleepwalking. Her white dress was stained. Her arms were covered in symbols drawn with red ink. She didn't speak. Just followed the man, step by step, into the dark. And they disappeared into the bush behind the house. Nobody followed them. That was the night we knew we were in over our heads. The next morning, the whole village was silent. You could hear a pin drop. People didn't open their shops. Children didn't go to school. The chief called an emergency meeting, but many people refused to show up. They were afraid. Even the ones who didn't believe in spirits kept their doors locked. But Pastor Joe didn't give up. By afternoon, he went back to Madame Remy's house with a few brave men. I was one of them. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because I wanted answers. What happened to Kemi? Why was that man walking freely in our village like he owned the place? When we entered the compound, everything felt wrong. The air was thick and hot, like we were inside an oven. There were feathers on the ground, and red cloth tied to the mango tree in front of the house. No one had seen those the day before. The door to the house opened easily, but the smell inside hit us hard. It was like a mix of blood, incense, and something rotten. We followed Pastor Joel inside. The living room was untouched. Neat. Like someone had just cleaned it. There was nothing strange until we moved toward the kitchen. Behind the fridge, there was a piece of wood that looked different. Pastor Joe touched it and it moved, revealing a small door. A hidden door. Behind it was a staircase leading underground. One of the men wanted to turn back, but Joe told him to hold the Bible and walk in front. We went down, holding our breath. What we saw down there still haunts me. It wasn't a room. It was a shrine. Walls painted in black and red. Candles melted into piles. Pictures of Madame Remy's children, both alive and missing. In the center of the room was a big bowl filled with dark water. Floating in it were items we couldn't name, bones, hair, tiny clothes. And beside it, a bed. A baby's bed. Empty, but fresh like it had just been used. Pastor Joe started praying immediately. He poured the oil everywhere, shouting, crying, commanding. The rest of us followed, even though we didn't know the words. Suddenly, the ground shook. Just a little, but enough to send fear through our bones. The candles went out one by one. And the bowl tipped over by itself. The water spread across the floor, and hissed like a snake. We ran out of that room like madmen. That was when we knew, Madame Remy didn't just do something bad. She did something unforgivable. The day after we found the room under Madame Remy's house, she disappeared. No one saw her leave. No one knew where she went. Her car was still parked in the compound. Her door was unlocked. But she was gone, like smoke. The police came from town that evening. Someone had told them everything, maybe out of guilt or fear. But when they searched the house, the secret room was gone. The wall was sealed, painted, neat like nothing had ever been there. Even the shrine under the ground had disappeared. They laughed at us. They said we were just spreading village stories. That we were jealous of a rich woman. They even threatened to arrest Pastor Joe. But we knew what we saw. All of us. The worst part was what happened next. 2 of Madame Remy's children were never found. Not even their bodies. Kemi was buried quietly, but no one came for the funeral except a few neighbors. Her friends didn't show up. Not even her father. People stopped walking past Madame Remy's compound. It became a ghost house. Dry leaves gathered in front. Birds stopped singing near it. The flowers she once planted died one by one. One night, months later, we heard strange sounds again, chanting, crying, drums, and the laugh of a baby. But when a few men gathered courage to go look, the compound was cold and dark. Pastor Joe left the village not long after. He said some battles are not for man to fight. That some people sell more than their soul for wealth. They sell their blood. I still live in that village. And I still pass Madame Remy's compound sometimes. The gate is always open, but no one goes inside. Some say she went to the city. Others say she is dead. But there's a story I believe. That she didn't disappear, she was taken. That the wealth she received came with a contract, and when the price was fully due, she had nothing left to give, except her children. So the spirits came for her. Now, children walk faster when they pass her house. Mothers warn their daughters not to be too greedy. And when someone becomes rich too